Now we are going to see a concept called callback refs. So in one of the earlier videos, we learned about refs, and we also learned about how refs can be used, how refs are set. Apart from that, we learned about forwarding refs to inside some child components. Okay, in this video, there is this concept of callback refs applies to a different kind of way in which refs can be used. So essentially that is react.create ref, or let's say normal use ref. These are definitely the most standard ways, but there is also one another way which is called uh, callback refs, which are sometimes used when you need slightly more control over it, but actually most of the time whenever you want to do work, this will be sufficient. But we'll see that there is one another syntax also, where the difference is that rather than creating a ref and passing here, okay, what we do that instead of this being a ref, this is generally a callback function, and that's why this is called callback ref. So which means that, let's comment this for now. Instead of this dot my ref, we will have some this dot, let's say my element or something. And what will happen that this is, let's say, initially just null, nothing else, which means that this is not initialized with some reference. Rather here, rather than passing a reference, we have a callback function, which is something like this. Okay, so what is this? You can see that this thing is a callback function where the argument is el, so element reference, and that element reference is assigned to this dot elem, which means that when this element gets rendered, then the reference to this DOM element will get assigned to this. Okay, so earlier what was the difference? The difference was that earlier it was create ref, it was ref, initially its current was null, and when here you passed this dot my ref, then inside that current's value was set to particular this DOM elements reference. But right now directly this thing, and why this is like in this dot my element, because we want to have some field where I can store that value. Apart from that, this is normal field variable, this is not a ref or something. This is not a ref, rather this is a direct DOM reference. So in case of ref, in the current prop attribute, we had the actual DOM reference, but here actually directly here we are going to have the actual DOM reference. In fact, you can see that. Let's simply print this thing. Okay, let's simply print this thing. So we can clearly see that obviously if this thing if nothing like this will be there, first of all let's check that we are using 2. So we should use 2, which means that we are using class based components. Apart from that, in class based components right now nothing is happening, it is null, because yeah, initially it was just assigned to null. But now if I set something like this, then when this will be rendered, then ref is equal to this callback function, and then this callback function will be called when this is being rendered. When this is being rendered, then that element's reference is assigned to this, directly this. There is no dot current or something, right? In fact, you can see that directly this is this. Okay, which means that if I need to focus here, for example, then I can directly use this, and this will directly work, right? There's no dot current here, so you can see that this works. Okay, so yeah, this is one syntax where there is no reference, now there is direct, something like this. Okay, now one thing to note is that this thing, this callback ref, okay, this callback ref, when this is called, then this this dot my element, this variable, is either null or its value is the reference which is assigned to it, right? When this component gets unmount, then React ensures that it again becomes null. This is similar to ref, right? In ref also, initially it was initially that ref dot current was null. When mounted, then ref dot current was the DOM reference, whatever was it was mapped to, and when component unmounted, then that reference dot current was set to null. Similarly here, whenever, so this variable is obviously initially assigned to null, but if this is used in callback ref, then if it is mounted, then it will be set to that particular DOM reference, and when the element is unmounted, then again it will be set to null. Okay. So yeah, one more thing, this we are using as an inline function, right? We could have used as a separate instance method inside this class, and we could have used this dot that instance method, right? Looks like both are same, but actually there is a slight difference in both of them in terms of rendering, which we will discuss at the end of this video. Right now, let's move to function component, and let's try to understand that how we can do similar sort of callback refs in function component. So now let's go to function component, change, and now we are using function component. Okay, and now it is working like normal, this thing. So let's hide that, which means that now there is no focus. Now instead of this, we are going to use callback callback reference, right? Now obviously, so what is the problem? The problem is that we used this dot my element is equal to null, right? This is a field of this class. In functional component, there is no such thing as field, right? So in order to simulate field, also we use ref only. So actually you understand that earlier we were using refs as like proper DOM ref. For that we were trying to use ref. Again we are trying to use ref only, but in a context that it is not actual DOM ref, it is not storing actually DOM ref, rather its current value is not storing DOM ref, rather it is rather we are trying to have a container inside this which will act as field. Okay, so let's just rename it for the sake of it, right? And again here let's have something like this. So you see what is the difference. Earlier it was simply a ref was there, and that ref was directly assigned in ref equal to, which means that that ref was intended to contain directly DOM reference. That is fine. Right now also it is intending to contain DOM reference, but the difference is that right now uh, it is just thought of as a field, and that fields obviously in the case of refs, the field's value will be in the current because we are using use ref, but since we are using callback ref, so actually when this thing will be rendered, then this thing dot current will get the reference. So again it is essentially doing the same thing. We just simply replaced a particular directly this value with this callback function, where this callback function is setting dot current is equal to, looks like same, but you could clearly see the difference here. Here the difference is slightly subtle, not that much evident, because of the fact that for denoting some field like instance like variables for class component, for function component, or for ref, in both cases we use ref only, and that's why. Anyways, let's print this thing and let's see what it is. and obviously it should be my element. Just we change the name just for the sake of it. Anyways, it could have been the same name, doesn't matter. So you can see that it is we are still getting reference, right? Which means that here as it is, it will work. So as it is, you can see that the focus is happening here. Okay. So now we can clearly see that that sort of thing is happening. So here not much difference was there. Simply here things were changed. Earlier ref was simply my element or whatever ref was there, and now it is a callback function. Other than that there is no change. Here also while focusing we are, which means that while getting the reference we are still getting dot current, because essentially this thing is a field value, and field value is used as ref inside the function component. Okay. Now we will go and try to do thing where we try to pass ref to a child component. Okay, which means that we have a child component. Let's say import this thing, my input from let's take the functional one only, my input. So what is this? This my input is a normal functional component, right? We just take it and we just render it, right? And right now let's comment these things for now. Yeah. So right now obviously just it is rendered, right? And it is rendered because of this only, right? Otherwise there was no point. But this thing which is rendered as a result of this functional component input. Now our thing is that how can we get reference inside this of the actual DOM element, which is input element, which is here. Okay, how can we do that? Again we can do a similar thing where we can pass something like this. We can pass something like this, right? But internally when this thing will be called, but its name cannot be ref, because now it can be function component, class component, anything can be ref. Let's name it something like normal input ref or something, right? So now it is just a new prop, input ref, and it has a particular callback. Now again similar to normal refs, in callback refs also, whenever this thing is assigned with assigned somewhere in some JSX element with ref is equal to, that is the actual DOM reference which will be assigned to this. Okay, and this we already know, right? This thing we already know because it is defined here. Okay, and here it doesn't need to be let because const is sufficient. Okay, so that is fine. Now this input ref we will simply use here. What we are going to do, we are going to use ref is equal to props dot input ref. Okay, so now let's see what is the value of this thing. Okay, you can see that we are still getting input, right? And that is because this input ref is just sort of now sort of forwarding it, and actual assignment is happening here. So actual this DOM's reference is assigned to this, because that is the callback function which is passed, right? And again if you simply do something like this, then it will work out of the box. Okay, and exactly the same thing would have been done here also. So which means that instead of this, if we used greeting 2, okay, then inside greeting 2, instead of ref, we use input ref, but the whole component is also available. So let's say, let's copy the whole thing. So let's use this, and let's use this component rather than this. Okay, and this time we are going to use this dot my element, and that dot current is not needed because here proper fields are supported. Okay, and yeah, that should be all. So before we do this, let's simply do this. So again, what is happening? You can clearly see that in class based component, which is currently used in class component, we are passing input ref, and that input ref is inside here, and actual assignment is happening here, right? So ditto whatever has happened there, same thing. When this thing will be rendered, this thing will come and its reference will be assigned in this dot my element, my element, and this my element is basically what, just a variable which now stores a reference to input. Okay, so since this works, so this will also work, and you can see that it is clearly able to focus it, so which means that it has got the reference. So so we can clearly see that like normal references, we could very well pass callback references also like this, and can be utilized in child component. Okay, so now we are almost done. Just a small thing which is remaining is that callback. So we earlier saw, right, here we earlier saw here that let's go back to the earlier scenario. So we had something like this, right? So we saw that, yeah, this thing is working fine, but this thing is a is essentially a function. Let's do one thing. Let's simply print something here. So like we can do something like this, right? Let's say we print what should we print? Let's print EL only. Okay, now this is fine, right? But let's say something gets changed. So let's say this dot state is equal to let's say anything. Let's say flag false, right? And let's say after 1 second, set timeout. Let's say after 1 second, we are doing something like or after 1.5 second, we are doing this dot set state. Nothing, we just want to re-render that the whole thing is for that only. So only one time, so let's just do it hard code it to false, false to true. Okay, so you can see what is happening after 1.5 second. You can see that in the middle one time null has rendered. Understand? So why is that? Why suddenly? So first time it was null, that is understood, right? Initially it was null, and then it was, and then it should be like this input reference, right? But in between we are seeing that one time this null is happening. Why that is happening? That is happening because of a small sort of issue here, which is not a big deal. If you understand that, then you can let it be like this. That is not a big deal. The thing is that this thing is an inline function. Inline functions gets inline function gets created every time it renders, because you understand this is just a declaration. So you can understand that, let's say if you write here I don't know 123, then every time this renders, then a new 123 number is created, right? It's not that some already in some field that thing is there and that memory location is same. It's not like that. If you write hello world, then every time new hello world is created. Okay, but if you store this hello world in some, let's say this dot data, and there you store this thing, and then here you put this dot data, then this dot hello world is not created every time. One time it is created and the same data is being reused here. In exactly the same manner, if we are using callback function here, then every time a new callback function is created, and because of that what is happening is that React is seeing that you are changing ref, because earlier ref was a different callback function, now you are giving a different callback function, and because of that since ref is changing, actually internally this ref is switched, and while the ref is being switched, the old ref is nullified, which means that it is set with null, and then again new ref is set with again. So basically essentially this thing is called twice. That is the bottom line. This thing is called twice. First time it is called with null, and again it is called with the new data, and this will happen every time whenever the render will happen. So essentially let's say 10 times your component has rendered, then rather than this being called 10 times, essentially it is being called 20 times if 10 times it has been re-rendered. Firstly will null with null, and then with the actual reference. So it would not matter much in the UI side, but just slight performance hit can be there, but still it will go unnoticed, because it will not matter much. You can simply ignore it. But just to show you that that can be avoided if you want to avoid it, just to show you that, let me write it. So let's say my handler or something is equal to, let's directly assign this thing. Okay, this thing is there, and directly here I will use, let's name it properly, ref handler. Okay, so now you see that okay, so just give me a second. That thing. Okay, yeah. So now what is happening? You can see that, yeah, this thing is being called. You can see here that if you see here, so let's have a squiggly line, something like this. So you can see that, yeah, initially that squiggly line came, and then after 1.5 second again it rendered, right? But right now this is not re-rendering, right? This is not re-rendering because if let's say if there is, let's say, some condition that this thing will be only rendered when flag is true or something like that, you understand, flag is true or something like that. If this is a condition, then that is fine, but otherwise if you understand, then there is no way this to unmount. There's no way, because this thing is not conditional based on this flag. So whether you change this flag to true to false does not matter, right? It does not matter. Whenever this renders, React virtual DOM understands that I don't have to change anything here. You see, earlier it was callback function, now it is not a callback function. So there is neither a callback function here, which means that this variable is as it is. Apart from that, React also sees that there is no change here. So input was earlier also there, now also there, and that's why I said that if some condition is there here, then like if flag is changing and this is mounting or unmounting based on that condition, then obviously remounting will happen. But But right now nothing has to happen, which means that input the whole element is as it is. If it is not unmounting or mount, then why to even bother about touching it, right? And that's why you can see that this ref handler, what it knows, React knows that whatever I assigned first time, that is still valid. Why? Because if it will unmount and then mount again, then it will try to run this again, because with the latest new reference, right? But first time whatever React mounted, React knows that I'm not going to, React virtual DOM diff algorithm sees that there is no need to change anything. Everything is perfect till now, because whatever is mounted still in the memory, that is only there, right? And that's why it does not even call this. So you can see the performance optimization that earlier we were seeing extra rendering, everything is avoided in this case, right? But again, this is, if you're just aware of this small thing, then the idea is that if you're just aware of this small thing, and the idea is that it's a very simple thing, right? Rather than this whole thing writing here, you simply create a variable instance method and in the class, and you just put there, and you put that instance variable here. Just using that one line, if you're aware of it, that will perform slightly better. But anyways, this is not a big deal. If you are even if you forget this, this is not going to have much of a performance hit, so this should be fine. Anyways, so this should be sufficient regarding this callback refs which we are talking about. Okay, so now we are going to see some next topic.